have you with us as we continue this crazy week. But the good news is though that they seem like they have a very strong case, and a lot of it's based on honestly the text messages between the suspect and his roommate. So we'll get all that for you, and we'll share all that with you. But I mean, basically, he's confessing to his roommate that he did it. Now, the question that was asked to the prosecutor is this a confession? And the prosecutor said, that's up to a judge. But listening to some very smart legal minds who were analyzing this, and they said that by all accounts, yes, because this is not, this confession was not coerced. This wasn't a situation where he was sitting with police and nobody Mirandized him or anything like that, or used any tactics to get this out of him. He just confessed all this to his roommate. What's clear is that he kept trying to figure out a way to retrieve the rifle. So the rifle was given to him as a gift. It belonged to his grandfather, and it was given to him by his father. His parents had suspected, based on some of the photographic evidence, that it might be him. And they asked to see pictures of the rifle, claiming that that his grandpa wanted to see it, just to know who had it and where it was and everything like that. And that's also in the text exchange with the roommate. He was trying to go back and retrieve it, but there were too many cops in the area and he couldn't. But he was fully intending on getting away with this, even saying to the fact of, I was hoping that this would be a secret we could keep until I was old. The motive is also very clear in the text messages, where he was saying that, in his opinion, Charlie Kirk was one of the most hateful people, I'm paraphrasing, and had to die, basically. So this is a very rock-solid case by the prosecution in the state of Utah. Now, this is separate and apart from anything the feds may do, but he's charged with aggravated murder. There's a number of other charges that go along with it. They are seeking the death penalty, and I mean, it would be shocking to see how they wouldn't be able to get a conviction against this guy. I don't know this prosecutor, but I was very impressed by how he conducted the press conference, because he kept reiterating the process and how this was not going to be tried in the media. It was not going to be tried in the court of public opinion. It was going to be tried in a court of law, and that he also has to obviously respect the rights of the accused. I thought that was also very important to be said as well. And this also comes as the two charges against Luigi Mangione, who was a suspect in the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, were dismissed today in New York. And all of his crazy fans were rejoicing and celebrating, even suggesting that he's a patsy and was framed. So these two things are going on and playing out at the same time. What's the connection? Both of these guys are on the left. That's the connection. And like I said earlier this morning on America's Newsroom on Fox, this is not both sides. There is a sickness on the left, and the Democrat Party needs to expunge it, because it is hijacked their party. And Governor Josh Shapiro is going to be giving a speech against hate, but it's not enough just to talk about it. You have to do something about it. You've got to address the fact that the Democrat Party has allowed within its ranks these extremists, and in order to win primaries, they've embraced them. Case in point, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. She has now officially endorsed the guy running for mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, who's an extremist. She's endorsed him because she's worried about facing a primary challenge in her bid for re-election as governor next year. So in order to avoid a primary challenge, you go to your left flank. You go to the extreme of your base. And that's where the Democrat Party is right now. And they have allowed so many of these people into their ranks. That is the bottom line. That's where we are. And even there's a clip of Jimmy Kimmel joking, I'm going to use air quotes here, joking about how much his staff loves Luigi Mangione, and how they want to pay him a visit in prison and bake him cookies. and he's about to be a jailhouse bride. I mean, what's funny about a man who killed somebody in cold blood? Absolutely nothing. But it's just like all the people that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, openly celebrating, and hoping that there's more to come in all of this. I mean, it's scary what's happening on the left in this country. It really is. It's scary. And I'm sorry, but just like I told you I would, I said it today. I said it on Fox, and I will keep saying it. It's not a both sides issue here. It's not. It is one political party that has allowed this into their home, and until they deal with it, we'll never have bipartisanship in this country. That is a fairy tale. That is a pipe dream. And even watching the display of some of these senators today, clearly grandstanding for their lefty base. Count Grandstangelo Spartacus Booker and the Tears of Rage Band being one of them, as Kash Patel, the FBI director, sitting there, and Adam Schiff and Dick Durbin and Sheldon Whitehouse and others. I mean, just a disgraceful performance by these people. But this is where the Democrat Party is now, and they got here because in order to win primaries, they had to cater to these people. They had to cater to this fringe group. And now they're so worried about losing, and they just want to stay in power, they're afraid to call these people out. So there's crickets from elected Democrats in scolding their own base, in calling them out for their behavior and how they're acting. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. It's not surprising. It's just heartbreaking. It really is. The other issue with this prosecution that I think is going to be really, I think they've got this guy dead to rights from everything I can tell here. He had motive. He planned this for about a week. This wasn't some sort of an impulsive thing. And he tried very hard to get rid of his tracks, telling his roommate / lover to erase the text messages. They would not say whether or not they're going to charge the roommate. And that's interesting, because it's very possible that the roommate may have destroyed evidence here, which is a crime, in which case then they could. But they might be holding that over his head in order to try to get cooperation at trial, because they say that he's been cooperative up until now. That's what they've been saying publicly. But it really matters when it comes down to trial. It's very possible they're holding that over his head. Like, hey, you destroyed messages, or you helped aid and abet him here. You gave cover to him, and we could charge you too. But we won't if you cooperate with us. Now, maybe they decide that they will charge him. I don't know. I mean, that's obviously something I don't know. They're keeping this very close to the vest. They're just laying out the facts as they have them. It's really just the facts, ma'am, kind of a situation here. And there may be reason for that, because they're not definitively saying that there were not other people involved. And they're also not definitively saying that there's more evidence that will come out. On the federal side of this, the FBI is obviously suggesting that there may have been other people involved too, and that there may have been other people involved in the Discord chats, and there could have been other people involved in the planning of this entire thing also. Clearly, this killer was motivated by his hatred for Charlie Kirk. So his state of mind here, his mens rea, was to kill Charlie Kirk for being Charlie Kirk. Not just for being some random young man speaking on a college campus, but for being Charlie Kirk. He hated Charlie Kirk. He hated his politics. He hated what he stood for. He hated everything that Charlie Kirk was about, and he wanted to murder him. That's very obvious from the text messages between him and his roommate / lover. And this guy seemed to become more and more radicalized during this entire process, but showed no remorse whatsoever, even making jokes to his roommate during the course of this, after the shooting had taken place. I mean, a real sicko here, a real evil sicko. And it's just, beyond appalling to think about how all this played out. And then on the flip side, to watch the circus in New York City when you've got people wearing Luigi hats from Super Mario Brothers and destroying my childhood in the process, because I grew up playing Super Mario Brothers, as I'm sure you did, and watching the show, not only the animated show, but also the live action show with Captain Lou Albano. And to try to equate Luigi Mangione with the Mario Brothers is just sick. I'm sure Nintendo's not happy about this. I would imagine they would not be. But it's sick. And these people are out there celebrating and saying that Luigi Mangione is a hero and he was a patsy. And if nothing else, even if he did it, well, he was justified in doing it because too many people have had their healthcare claims denied. Again, it's just real sick stuff. It really is. And it's where the left is. It's where the left is. All right, so let me play for you, and this is the big story of the hour as we begin this hour, brought to you by Dr. Mike Veneria. If you have been putting off getting a free dental implant consultation, stop putting it off and reach out to his office today by going to veneriadental.com, VANARIA, veneriadental.com. Dr. Mike is the best guy there is when it comes to advanced complex dental procedures. So here's Utah County District Attorney Jeff Gray saying Tyler Robinson had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. Cut 31.
Become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift.
So that's key in all this because it plays into what he was trying to do to go back and retrieve the rifle after he fled the scene. So he apparently changed his clothes and fled the scene and tried to circle back to get it, and then was expressing regret that he didn't just leave with it right away. That's going to, I mean, obviously all of this is going to play out in court, but it shows no remorse whatsoever for what he did. He was only concerned about just covering his tracks here and trying to escape, and then eventually at one point realized he wasn't going to be able to get it. So he was hoping that it wouldn't be able to be tied back or traced back to him. That would be traced back to his grandfather, because it ultimately belonged to him. And he wasn't sure if there were fingerprints and back and forth and all of this. They've been working on this case for 24 hours a day, nonstop. And they've taken their time here in announcing these charges. He also announced that at about 3 o'clock today, so probably as we're speaking right now, the suspect will go for his initial arraignment. It's a virtual arraignment, as they always do in Utah, on a felony charge, and that will happen. And then the purpose of today, since they don't do a grand jury out there, is to lay out these charges and then present them to a judge so a judge can determine there's enough evidence here to go forward with a trial, which I'm sure the judge will, and then they set a trial date. And then at that point, then the trial will commence. Will this guy try to strike some sort of a plea agreement? Well, remember something. Prosecution doesn't have to accept it. So even if he tries to plead guilty to try to get away from the death penalty, it doesn't mean the state of Utah has to accept his plea agreement. And it seems like Utah is pretty intent on frying this guy. And obviously, there's also the aspect of the feds. If the feds believe that they can make charges here count, if they can make charges, and I think they can, I really do. I think that what this guy was doing was more than just murder. I know that the open and shut aspect of this, because I was listening to Paul Morrow, retired NYPD inspector, who's a brilliant guy in this stuff. And his point was, and it's an excellent point, keep it in the state level because it's open and shut. It's murder, and you can just go with it, and the feds can wait on charges, keep them in their back pocket if they need to, but they're probably not going to need to. Otherwise, because if the feds charge him now, you might get into issues regarding his right to a speedy trial, and it may cause delays, and so have the feds wait. And I get that point. I think the feds also have a very strong case they're putting together that what this guy did was an act of political terrorism because it was intended to strike fear into the hearts of everybody, and that Charlie Kirk was gunned down not just for being a random person talking to students, but for being Charlie Kirk and for his political views. And then if you can make the case in court that that was done because he had to send a message to MAGA, to you, to me, to whoever, and also because he wanted to scare his supporters, well, then I think you've got a very strong case there as well. But if the state of Utah can throw the book at this guy, which they're going to, and they can get a guilty conviction and they can get the death penalty, then you don't even have to worry about the federal charges because you can just, fry his ass and you don't have to worry about anything going forward. The federal charges take time to develop. It's a longer process in that sense. They may come back with that. The Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was saying that earlier today. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're also following all the evidence and seeing wherever it goes on whatever level. And who else might have been involved here, whether there was a broader conspiracy, because a conspiracy would just involve one more person. Doesn't appear as if there was yet, at least based on how the Utah prosecutor outlined everything. That doesn't mean that more details are not going to come forward. It doesn't mean that they don't have more facts that they're just not sharing with the public. There's going to be a motion, I would imagine, from the defense to try to move venues, arguing that he can't get a fair trial. Knowing that, and I'm not an attorney, but the prosecutors would take that into account, and if they have other evidence up their sleeve, they'd want to hold that. They'd want to hold on to that in case that would be either argued, and I mean, it comes out in discovery, obviously, at some point, but there's a time and a place for that. So you don't have to show all your cards right away. And it's obvious that they don't want to show all their cards right away. So there's a lot about this that we'll break down as we continue here on the show. The other aspect of all of this today has to do with whether or not Charlie Kirk's assassin did this because his roommate / lover was transitioning, and if that was the motive, because it was the transgender issue, or if it was just all of it, and then whether the roommate, who based on the text messages seems to have not had any knowledge of this prior, but then again, certainly could have had knowledge of this prior to that. That's certainly possible. Certainly possible, and they may just be holding all that. As I mentioned earlier, the idea to the roommate, hey, cooperate with us or we'll charge you too. We'll charge you with all this stuff as well. But for people to say that there was no political ideology, I mean, this is clearly this suspect in this case 100% had clear political ideologies. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, and this is what you heard the prosecutor read, he had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans-right oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle the police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, the father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond, and he told his roommate in the text messages that he would also not respond. So there's no doubt about that. He tried to destroy evidence, asked his roommate to destroy the evidence, and tried in every way to cover his tracks here in all of these things. That's where we are. That's where we are right now. And there's a lot more that I'll share with you as the show goes on today, as we continue. All right, 855-839-1210 is the number, and on X at Rich Zeoli. I want to remind you, our event with Jack Carr is coming up October 13th. So only have a few weeks to go. Jack's fans are passionate, and they are not necessarily listeners of our show or our radio station, although a lot of them are. So you're going to be competing with them for tickets. So I strongly suggest you go to 1210wphg.com right now. You get your tickets for the event. Politics and Pints, there are VIP seats, which will get you a signed copy of his new book, Cry Havoc, and a chance to meet Jack, and also a souvenir Politics and Pints tumbler. And then there are the general admission tickets as well. It's all going to sell out. Jack Carr events always do. So go to 1210wphg.com and do it now before you run out of time.